Okay. What's up, guys? My name is Jaivin, and I will be presenting our Intro to Scripting workshop. So, first of all, what exactly is scripting? Well, it's pretty simple. Just a small program that can automate tasks, right? So you give the computer instructions, and then it simply executes them. Some examples, like if you need to rename a bunch of files, scraping data, sending emails, or transforming CSV data. There are a lot of different uses for just automating something on the computer is just easier. We use Python to uh, to script, and the reason for that is because it's, as you can see here, beginner friendly. It reads like English, and there are a lot of libraries. So there are a bunch of different tools we can use basically that makes certain tasks super easy with these Python libraries, and it's used in real life too. A lot of in-industry work is done with Python. Um, so you're probably asking, what's the difference between scripting and other programming, right? So in object-oriented programming, for example, we use C++, plus plus, and this is what you've used in your um, CS classes at UCLA, versus in scripting, we use Python. C++ plus plus is a compiler language, which means that it has a compiler. When you write your code and you click build, it runs the compiler and it translates all of your code into machine code, which is really easy for the hardware to use, which means it's really fast. So it's close to the hardware and it's really fast, but that means you control a lot more. For example, memory allocation. You have to deal with that C++. Um, in Python, it's a lot easier, right? Because it's an interpreted language, which basically means that it doesn't have a compiler. It has an interpreter, which goes line by line and it translates every line as it goes. This is slower, but it's easier to iterate and it's easier to debug. So we like to use Python. If you're still confused, imagine that you were building a piece of furniture, right? Using C++ plus plus would be like building the entire thing yourself, right? You get the wood, you cut the pieces, you hammer the nails in, you decide how you want the joints to fit, you design everything, right? Versus in Python, it'd be just like getting an IKEA box, right? Getting a package from IKEA and setting it up, right? All you have to do is put together the pieces and follow the instructions. Um, so as you can see here, I included some code, right? If you don't delete that pointer, you get a memory leak, right? Um, versus you don't have to deal with that in Python. Right? You just set the variable. Quick refresher, right? We have functions like print functions, and we can use um, quotes to write strings, right? And when we define variables, we don't have to specify the variable type, right? We just say name, age, score. We just say the name of the variable, and we set equal to something. And then we can also integrate, variables and strings using F strings, right? That's the way we use that. We use curly braces, and we use the letter F before the string. So this would print hello Hoth and all of that stuff. And also for variables, right? Um, don't have to define the type. And for conditionals, if and else statements, we don't need parentheses, although you can if you want to. And you use colons, not curly braces. And then for loops, right? Again, we don't use curly braces and we use this range function, right? For I in range, basically just runs this 5 times. So these are some important things to keep in mind for this Python scripting. A couple more things. If we want to define a function, right, we use def, the name, and then the arguments, and then all of our stuff goes inside the colon. So indentation is important. And the way we call the function, pretty simple. Same as always, we don't need a semicolon. So now let's talk about what exactly web scraping is. You've probably heard of it before, but web scraping is when we use a script to extract data from websites, right? A lot of websites are written in HTML, and so we use a library called Beautiful Soup in Python, and that allows us to uh, take the HTML data from this website and convert it into information that we can actually use for whatever reason. And scripting is used in industry a lot, right? It's very useful, but it's also very hard. Um, People use it for market research, right? Brew and dining. If you have that app Nom scrapes the UCLA website for all the menus, right? It's using news, it's using AI agents, it's using all sorts of things. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to be using this thing called Beautiful Soup. Right? It's a Python package, and we can get HTML data. So as you can see, this is some code, and now we're going to move on to our demo. So if you have Python installed on your computer, you could um, open VS Code and you could use Python in that. However, I'm not going to expect you to do that. If you want to, you can look up how to do that online. It's pretty simple, but we're just going to use Google Colab. Uh, all right. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to import some libraries, right? Let me just make sure over here. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is import some libraries. We're going to import requests, requests, and we're going to import. This is what most people do. They call it BS4. We're going to say from BS4 import beautiful soup. So beautiful soup is our library that scrapes the HTML, and we are also going to import time. And let's just run that. Great. Now we can see it's run. Now let's start, right? Let's run our base URL. We're gonna, it's a variable, right? Base URL. We're gonna set it equal to a string, right? And the website we're gonna use is called uh, quotes.toscrape.com. Remember, scraping is pretty difficult, so this website was created specifically for quotes to scrape. Yeah, it's created specifically for making things easier to scrape. Right. All right. Let's go back here. So that's our base URL. Now we're going to define a function, right? And we're going to call scrape underscore quotes. And then we're gonna take in a max pages argument, and we're gonna set it equal to 3 for now. Basically, we don't want to scrape literally every single page on the website. It's gonna take a long time. We don't need to do that. Max pages set equal to 3. Let's create a data type called quotes. Or let's create an array. I mean, quotes underscore data. Let's call it that, and set it equal to an empty array. And then we are going to print backslash n. Let's create a new line, and let's say starting web scrape of quotes. And let's add a dot, 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 right? We don't have to do this. This is just so it'll look like a little bit nicer while we run it. And the next thing we're going to do here is we're going to have a for loop, right? So this for loop is going to basically iterate through the pages, right? Lucky for us, this quotes to scrape the uh, the page name is actually called page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, right? So it's really simple to iterate through the pages. So we're going to say for page in range 1, right? Because we want to start on page 1. And we're going to go to max pages plus 1, like that. And inside our for loop, we want to have our URL, right? Make it an F string. So we have our URL already over here, right? That's our base URL. But when we go into like specific pages, that URL is going to change. So we're going to make it an F string, and we're going to say base underscore URL, right? Because we still want to keep the base one. And add a slash page and add a slash. And then which page are we on? Well, we're on page, right? That's going to iterate from 1 to 4, right? Whatever our max page number is. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to fetch the HTML, right? So we're going to say response is equal to requests dot get and then our URL, right? So this is going to get the HTML from our URL. And we're going to have an if statement just in case, the code, the page is like broken or whatever, it doesn't work anymore. We're going to do response dot status underscore code. Make sure it's not equal to or yeah. This basically says, if it breaks or if the page doesn't exist anymore, we're gonna print an f string will say failed to fetch page, and then we want to say page, right? Yeah, that's all we want to say. Next thing, right? Done with that if statement. Let's parse our HTML now. So we're gonna create a variable soup, and we're gonna set it equal to beautiful soup. And inside our arguments, we're gonna put our response.text, right? And we're gonna use our HTML parser. So this actually shouldn't be here yet. I haven't explained that. And we're also gonna make quote blocks, right? We're gonna find a bunch of quote blocks. Is equal to soup dot find all. We're looking for divs right now, so let's go back. How do I? Okay, let's go back to our presentation really fast. I have a slide over here. So in HTML, there's some things called tags, right? And tags are basically kind of, they create boxes sort of where our information goes. And these tags let us know what text is where. So for example, we have a head tag, right? That limits the page's header, right? And then we have a title, right? That would define a title. And then we have a bunch of these like tags that we can use. And basically we can search for them using beautiful soup, right? Class is equal to, and then there's an object called class, right? Or just a class object of type slope or quote slope. And basically we're looking for, divs that are quotes. And then just the syntax thing here, you need to add an underscore there. And then now let's do another for loop. For block in quote blocks, right? This is the number of blocks that have quotes, basically, so our number of quotes. We're gonna create a text variable, and we're gonna set it equal to span, which is another like HTML thing, and then class underscore text, right? We want it to be a text, and then we're gonna do dot get text. So what this is doing right here is it's saving the text from this block into this variable text, right? Let me just make sure everything is good here. Need an equal sign right there. Yeah, okay, no more error. The next thing we're gonna do, right? We want to find out who our author is. So we're gonna do we're gonna set our author equal to block.find. Now the author, right, it's gonna be written a little smaller. So small. And the way we know all this is we go into here and then we can go, we can inspect, right? And so now we can see these divs and we can see what class it is, right? And now let's like, I don't know, go to a different page or something. Boom. Now our thing has changed, right? So as you can see, we have all these divs, and we have these header boxes in our in these bodies here. So if we look here, we can find these tags, and then we can actually find out like where our quote is. Right there, boom, class quote. It's in this here, right? It has a text right there. All right, let's go back here. Um, class underscore equals author. And we're going to get this text as well. And then we're also going to add, if I have any tags, right? Like these tags down here. So we're going to say tag, tags is equal to, now a little bit different syntax here, right? Because it's a list. So we're going to do tag dot get tag get text for tag in block dot find all. All right, so we're a class underscore equals tag. Okay, so what this is saying is we're going to get all of our tags, right? Um, and we're going to put it in this, it's kind of like a weird syntax, but we're going to put it in this colon or in this list. And yeah, so this is a for loop right here, right? It's written in one line. So this is pretty efficient code um, because it's just written in one line, right? Thanks to Claude. Yeah, Claude helped me out there. And then we're gonna append our data, right? So we're gonna say quotes underscore data dot append, and we are going to add quote text, right? And then the author, shoot, author is going to be the author of the text, right? And then our tags are going to be our tags. Pretty easy there. And then let's also add a time, like something to kind of like delay the time so it doesn't hammer like the server over and over again, right? So we're going to do time dot sleep 0.5. And that's going to be really quick, right? Just going to make it so that, it's not going fast, 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 right? It's going to give it time and not blow up anything. And then at the end of this, we are going to, let's get out of this for loop here. I think it's right. Then we're going to return our quotes data. Cool. So let's just run this. Okay. No errors. And now let's add a couple more functions, right? Let's add display quotes, right? Obviously, we have to have that. We're going to take in the quotes. Again, pretty nice. We don't have to define a function argument type, right? We just have a variable, and we're going to print. Let's say I should probably make this an F string. Let's add a new line, and let's say scraped. And then we need the curly braces. Let's take the length of quotes. So that's going to say the number of quotes. And let's add an exclamation point because we're super happy and excited about this. And let's print just to like, this is just a formatting thing for the output. We're going to add like a little line right there. Let's print a bunch of equal signs. Let's we can actually do this times 60. All right, so this is going to print 60 equal signs. I think that's overkill, but you'd be surprised. And then for I and Q, in enumerate quotes, right? So we only want to actually display like 5 quotes. Uh, so that's this code right here is going to run through this like 5 times. It's only going to show 5 quotes. So let's print an F string. Let's do dash and backslash n new line. It's gonna let's do like number. Uh, let's do number I, right? So let's which number quote is this? We're also gonna print the actual quote itself. Wow, it already knows what I'm gonna do, right? We want to print um, Q, then quote. Uh, and next, we'll print the author, right? So we're gonna do an F string. We're gonna say author, and then oh sorry, no, it's not right. I'm just double checking like the correct stuff so that I don't give you bad code by mistake. Let's do that. Let's add a couple spaces here for formatting. You'll see at the end why that is. And let's add a couple spaces and a dash. And let's add our curly braces. Let's say Q at author. Wonderful. And then now we are going to print our tags, right? Print the spaces, the tags here. Let's go. I'm going to join a bunch of commas with Q tags. All right, yeah, cool. So that's our display function. Uh, you know what? Let's close it out. Close it out with another 60 equal signs. You can never have enough of those. All right, good. No errors. Next one. Now we are going to create a function that can find by an author. And we're going to take in quotes and we're going to take the author's name, right? And let's see, if our matches are going to be Q, sorry, Q for Q in quotes, right? If name dot lower in Q author dot lower. All right, so let's break down what this code means, right? You've actually probably seen all of this. It's just written in one line, right? So instead of saying for int I is equal to 0, I is less than whatever, right? We just say Q in quotes, right? So Q is going to be the actual quote that's in quotes. If that makes sense. And we're going to say name dot lower. If it's in Q author dot lower, then it's true, right? So we want to add it to our matches. And we're going to print. We're going to say quotes by, and we're going to print the name right here. Boom, just like that. Okay, and we're going to say if matches, right? If we have anything in there, we're going to get a for for loop there, and we're going to print um, Q. All right, because remember we have a bunch of different like here, right? We have a bunch of different uh, items in our list, right? So we have like a quote item, we have like an author item, we have a tags item, right? So we're over here, we're just specifying that we want the quote item. That's what we want to display. And if we can't find any matches, we are going to print no quotes found. So that. Okay, let's run this, make sure it works. Great. And now let's define a find by tags function, right? Because if we want to look for a quote, um, we want to find some quotes that have certain tags, right? So we're going to take in our quotes and we're going to take in the tag that we're looking for. And pretty similar to the last one. We're going to say matches is equal to Q for Q in quotes if tag dot lower in and remember our tags is also an array of a bunch of other tags. So we have to do another for loop. Tags in Q at uh, in hold on, sorry, I did this wrong. So we're gonna put in another set of curly braces, or I mean brackets. T dot lower for T in Q tags. Right. All right. There we go. And this should be curly braces. Perfect. Wait, no, this should be brackets. Sorry. All right. There we go. Too many. Nope. That's not right. Boom. Boom. What's not matching? We need one more. Boom. All right. Fixed it. There we go. Debugging. Okay. We're going to print uh, an F string. We're going to say quotes with tag, and then we're going to specify our tag just like that. Now, if matches has stuff in it, we could just say if matches. We're going to do a for loop, and we're going to print the quote. Uh, Q quote. And let's also print the author so we know. So Q author. Didn't matter, but just in case, make those. All right. Um, and else, if not, right, we are going to print no quotes found. It's not a sad face because we're sad that we didn't find any quotes by our favorite tag, right? Let's run that, see if it works. Okay. Now this is our main, right? Last thing we're going to do before we wrap this up. We're going to say if um, name is equal to main. Um, we're going to say quotes is equal to scrape underscore quotes. Let's leave. So we don't actually have to put anything here because we already specified that the number of pages we want to do is 3. Um, and then let's display our quotes. And let's add those here. All right. On this, see what we get. Scrape 0 quotes. Why did it not scrape anything? Let's do max pages equal 3. Still scrape 0 quotes. Why did it do that? Come back to that. Let's see if everything else works. Let's find underscore by author, put in quotes, and let's find quotes by Einstein. See if that works. No quotes found by Einstein because we do not scrape anything. Not quite sure what's going on here. Let's do pip stall. Interesting, interesting. Second, but still no quotes found. Interesting. I'll give you 1 second. Let me see what's going on here. All right. Let me go back, share my screen. A little bit of a mishap there. Where were we? Right here. The issue was it's quotes to scrape.com. So gotta be careful with these things. Let's see. Yay. Scrape 10 quotes, right? Our first one is this. Boom. If we want to filter quotes by Einstein, right? Boom. Can I close? Can I make Gemini go away? Sorry, Gemini, Tamashi. Right. Let's print a million equal signs again right here just to make it look nice. All right, boom. Why is it? I don't know. What can I? How do I make this go? Boom. By Gemini. All right, there we go. Run this. Shoot, I deleted me. There we are. Okay, scrape 10 quotes. All right, now, all right, this is what Gemini added. Okay, sure. No, whatever. No, actually, I don't think this. Sorry. Okay. And let's also test our find by tags function. Let's put in quotes and let's put in, let's find some love quotes. Great. What is wrong? Unexpected indent. Yeah, so this is why indentation is important in Python. I will never get this error in C sharp. Starting web scrape. All right, there we go. And oh, it failed, but it did find quotes here. Not sure what this is about. But that is pretty much all of web scraping, or at least this demo we are doing. This function does not work quite as planned. Um, which I will have to look at. What did we do wrong here? Not sure. But maybe there are just no love quotes. All right, anyway, that is all for this session. I hope you learned something. Sorry for that little blip in the middle there. You stop sharing. Yeah, thank you for coming. Hope you enjoyed the workshop.